Starting us off at number 10 is Donkey as a real boy. Now you're probably thinking, what did she just say? How is Donkey a real boy by any stretch of the imagination? Let me tell you. I need to start this theory off by referencing another loved classic, Pinocchio. Now if you remember, in Pinocchio there's a part of the movie where some boys go to the amusement park Pleasure Island and then end up turning into donkeys. Now fans on Reddit have theorized that Donkey is one of those boys that went to Pleasure Island. Pinocchio is actually in the Shrek movie as well, and all the other characters from the movie all seem to come from other fairy tales like Three Little Pigs, etc., but Donkey is seemingly out of place. Donkey also has human-like memories of swirlies and wedgies, wherein Puss asks him more because, I mean, we're all thinking it, how can a donkey get a wedgie? And he replies, some things are better left unsaid. So in that sense, it's very plausible to say that Donkey could very well be a boy from Pinocchio. Coming in at number 9 is Universal Studios Dubai Land. So this was meant to be a Universal mega complex theme park located in Dubai called, you guessed it, Dubai Land. It started being constructed in 2008, and I kid you not, you guys, every kid in Dubai wondered when Dubai Land was gonna open. I always wondered when it was gonna open, because they built the entrance for it first before anything else, and it was this huge fake roller coaster structure with this person on a motorbike just flying off the rails, but that was it. That's all they built. They built the entrance and nothing else, and I was waiting for it to open for like 5 ever until I realized it just wasn't being worked on. The project was going to take up 20 million square feet and it was going to cost 8 billion dirhams, which is about $2.2 billion. It was going to have 12 attractions, so 4 roller coasters, 2 water rides, this giant Ferris wheel, and a whole Sahara Kingdom theme park that played on Arabian folklore and 1001 nights. But because of the global financial crisis that was going on at the time, the project got delayed till 2012 and then eventually scrapped altogether. Well, I've never actually talked about an abandoned project that I actually saw in real life and experienced, so this was new. I loved it. I mean, I would have loved it more if it was actually built, but whatever. At number 8 we have Where's Waldo. Are you kidding? Where's Waldo was my literal childhood. I remember I would buy the big books, the little mini ones, and I would just try and find him as quickly as possible, but honestly, it was hard at times. How cool would a film have been? I would have loved to know what kind of storyline his character would have followed, like where was it going? But oh well. Back in June of 2009, Universal had finally acquired the rights to make the book into a film, and they even had DreamWorks classic Eric Ellenbogen as the executive producer on it. But for some reason unknown, the project was abandoned and that was the sad end of it. So I guess we truly don't know where Waldo is. We never will. Filling at number 7 slot is Dr. Seuss's Noiserium. Seuss Landing is one of the most colourful, fun parts of Universal Studios, and the original plan for it included the Noiserium. It was meant to be this musical playground that had a bunch of different exhibits that you could go to after you went on the Cat in the Hat dark ride. It was kind of like the dessert at the end of your roller coaster dinner, if you will. And Kona and Associates designed the whole thing, and the focal part was going to be this interactive orchestra set in a village square, and surrounding that were different interactive sound chamber rooms, which is pretty damn cool. But that was abandoned for many reasons before construction even began, and that was the end of that. I didn't find out more because there wasn't anything more on it. Now at number 6 is The Legend of Spyro 3D. So if you've never played this game, I understand why this one isn't really a big deal for you, but for people who did, this was a huge loss. So back in 1998, the video game Spyro the Dragon was released, featuring its main character, a young purple dragon called Spyro, and his dragonfly sidekick Sparks. In the game, you go through Dragon Worlds collecting items, rescuing your fellow dragon friends, and trying to defeat the one and only Nasty Nork. It was a really successful game, and in October of 2007, the animation picture company bought the rights to make it into a film. The script was done, the filming locations were set, they knew which animation studio was going to work on the film, and it was going to be distributed and advertised by Universal and Velvet Octopus. The release was even planned for Christmas of 2009, but it was delayed till April of the next year, and then after no news about it for a while, Daniel Altier announced the movie had officially been cancelled since Activision wanted to go a different way with it, and that ended up being Skylanders. Coming in at number 5 is Mount Crumpet. The ever classic Christmas movie The Grinch Who Stole Christmas is huge in pop culture. I still haven't watched the movie fully, but I feel like I know the plot inside out. Actually, fun fact, the first time I watched it, I thought I was watching The Grudge, so when I saw the Grinch for the first time in his cave, I was terrified, and then for years after, I thought the Grinch was The Grudge. True story. Anyway, there was a plan for Universal Studios to build a Matterhorn-esque roller coaster around a recreation of Mount Crumpet. It was going to be added to the Seuss Landing area in the Islands of Adventure, but for some reason it was just never carried out. I wish they would tell us why these projects got abandoned so at least we have some closure. Like, I don't have closure. Do you have closure? No. At number 4 is Aladdin and his lamp. I was born and raised in the Middle East. You guys already know Aladdin is my favorite Disney movie, and Jasmine is of course my favorite princess. I am Jasmine, there's no doubt about it. Now I know there's a cartoon movie of it and a live action version now in 2020, but back in 1941 there was nothing. Disney had just released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and it did incredibly well. So to compete, Universal's first animation studio, Walter Lantz Productions, was given the task to produce their first feature film based on the tales of Aladdin. The budget was $750,000 and it was going to star comedy duo Abbott and Costello as well as Frank Churchill doing the soundtrack. But very quickly the project was abandoned since the overseas markets had been cut off with, you know, the whole World War II going on and whatnot, and they had just seen Mr. Bug Goes to Town fail epically at the box office, so they were like, let's just not. Why don't we finish off this whole war thing and then maybe think about it. Filling at number 3 slot is the Stephen King ride. Universal were doing great, they still are. They had just gotten the rights to Men in Black at the time, and simultaneously they were planning on developing a horror ride based on Stephen King's books, notably The Shining and It. This ride would have been screwed up, you already know. There was meant to be a trick ending at the end of it where guests thought it had ended and they were about to get off, but instead more horror is thrown at them in the form of Pennywise, of course. Now It would have come from the control booth to attack the rioters who then had to escape his clutches. The project was sadly abandoned since they chose to develop Men in Black Alien Attack instead, but the trick ending lived on as part of Revenge of the Mummy the ride, just not featuring Pennywise. Now at number 2 is Jurassic Park Chaos Effect. Now I love the Jurassic Park franchise, but of course it came out before I was born, and the bits I do remember watching are quite cloudy in my mind. I do love the Jurassic World franchise though. I think Jessica Chastain is an incredible actress, so I enjoyed it. So back in July of 1997, the third part of a 4-part comic adaptation of The Lost World came out, and that was the confirmation readers needed to know that it was all based on a film that they were currently developing. With that cartoon was going to be a series of dino toys called Jurassic Park Chaos Effect, and it was meant to be different dinosaur hybrids that the scientists had created in the cartoon. The toys were released in June of 1998, but the animated series that was so hyped up was just never produced. Alright, just string me along, lead me on. And finally at number 1 is a Batman Island. As a DC fan, I cannot wait for the new Batman with Robert Pattinson. I think it's gonna be his career-defining role, not Edward Cullen, and I cannot wait for it. Now Universal's second theme park was actually meant to be Cartoon World, and they were gonna integrate a bunch of animated worlds into it. But then Jurassic Park got released and the whole thing changed to Islands of Adventure, which still has a lot of cartoons in it too, but it doesn't have Batman Island. Originally there was going to be a huge part of land just dedicated to Bruce Wayne, and the theme was obviously going to be Gotham City. It would have featured a 5-story statue of Batman at the entrance with his cape flying and all. The featured ride would have been the Batcar interactive dark ride, featuring of course Batcars instead of Batmobiles. Cute. Batjets was also another roller coaster that was going to circle Gotham City, which would have been sick. Shops and restaurants would have all been Batman themed. The Bat Signal would have been in the sky the whole time. Like, why was this not built? I am pissed. Starting us off with number 10, we have Mr. and Mrs. FARQUAAD. Ew, who would even want to marry that vertically challenged man, let alone take his last name, Fiona? That's who. Yeah, I'm not kidding. We see evidence of this all throughout the first film. If only he had played his cards right, he could have become royalty after all. I don't mean to be mean, but if Fiona fell in love with Shrek, there really is hope for Lord FARQUAAD. When he first rescues her, we see Fiona annoyed at the fact that Shrek isn't 1, what she thought a Prince Charming would be, and 2, not romantic at all. Then she even demands that Lord FARQUAAD should have come rescued her in person. Hello, she's now given us 3 hints of what he could have done right and made her fall in love. Shrek and Fiona only fall in love on the way back to DULOC. The journey and spending time is what sparks the love. So basically, in essence, if Lord FARQUAAD wasn't lazy and had just gone to get Fiona himself, she would have been happily married to him. And I don't even want to imagine what their big-headed children would have looked like. Just next point. At number 9 is Fiona's curse. Now Fiona narrates to us at the beginning of the first movie that a witch put a curse on her when she was little, and that curse turns her into an ogre every single night. But we never find out who this witch is and why anyone would even do that to a harmless baby. Even when we encounter witches in the later films, we rarely ever see them actually use their magic. This theory claims that it was actually the fairy godmother, the low-key queen of all evil, who put the curse on Fiona all those years ago. She wanted her son Prince Charming to marry Fiona, but forcing that all throughout her life would just seem too planned and too riddled with other motives. So she hatched a plan to curse Fiona and get her locked away in a tower. As Prince Charming, he was expected to save her from the tower and kiss her, breaking her curse with a true love's kiss. And he's also meant to easily slip into the dragon's den and get past it, whereas many others have died trying. A bit suspicious, but of course he's able to slip through because his mum orchestrated the whole thing. Thanks, Mom. Coming in at number 8 is about the other ogres. Have you ever realized the only ogres we ever see are Shrek, Fiona, who's originally human, and their kids? Is that not suspicious as hell? You're telling me from the first to the third movie we don't encounter a single other ogre other than them? I don't know why I didn't question that when I watched it the first time, but I was probably too distracted by Donkey's annoyingness to focus on anything else. This theory suggests Shrek got rid of all the other ogres before the first film even began. The only time we see other ogres is in the alternate reality in Shrek 4, but in the alternate reality the main and biggest change was that Shrek had never been born. So on one side we have Shrek alive but with no other ogres, and on the other hand we have no Shrek but the rest of the ogre species. I don't know which side to sway towards on this one. What do you guys think? Did Shrek partake in some mass genocide and kill all the other ogres, or is this theory just completely crap? At number 7 is Prince Charming's dad. I know most of us believe that the fairy godmother just magicked him into existence, but we have to look at this more literally. The theorizer and other fans have created the theory that Prince Charming did in fact have a dad. Now the main goal of the fairy godmother is to get her son married to Fiona so she becomes a lot more powerful. More so than that, she wants to take over the kingdom and destroy it as an act of revenge against the previous royal family, Queen Lillian's family. But why is she so hell-bent on doing this? I mean, relax, find a new hobby, maybe use your magic for good, I don't know. But in her defense, I guess she has a pretty good reason. According to the theory, she was shunned from far, far away because Prince Charming's dad was in fact part of the royal family. And of course no royal family ever wants anyone to air out their dirty laundry or expose the skeletons in their closet, and so they just brutally banished her from the kingdom. Talk about daddy issues. Filling in at number 6 slot are the 3 bears from Goldilocks. Now I'm gonna take you way back to before Shrek even met Donkey. The movie starts off by showing us different fairy tale characters like the 3 bears all locked up in cages. Note, we see Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear all at once. Fast forward to later on in the film, we see Shrek go back to the swamp and he sees a bunch of the other fairy tale characters just chilling. We see Papa Bear and we see Baby Bear, but there is no sign of Mama Bear anywhere. Where's she at? Well, the theory claims that Lord FARQUAAD actually murdered her and then used her skin as a rug in his palace. Talk about savage. Later on in the movie, we see this Mama Bear skin rug in the corner of his bedroom with her pink little bow and all. Absolutely harrowing. Who would have thought Shrek could double as a secret family homicide at the same time? Not me. At number 5 is the King of DULOC. Now we already know who the King of DULOC is because he's probably the shortest, most irritating fairy tale character you will ever meet with an annoyingly nice jawline. But what is up with his haircut? If you're a lord, at least get a personal stylist or a makeover. But anyway, a Reddit thread started by Ninja Breadman 00 claims that Shrek is the real King of DULOC. I feel at this point you guys probably think I'm just making all these up, but I'm legitimately not. At the end of the first film, Fiona marries Lord FARQUAAD and turns back into an ogre, and then he proceeds to try and kill her. Great start to the marriage. But since the marriage is legally binding, FARQUAAD also then technically becomes the king. Then Dragon swoops in, saves the day and eats him, and then Fiona later remarries Shrek, making her the queen and him the new King of DULOC. Wow, started from the bottom, now we really here. Coming in at number 4 is the curious case of King Harold. Now at the end of Shrek 2, we see the fairy godmother hit King Harold with some fairy magic and he turns into a frog. Sad story, I know. Now most simpletons would feel bad for him and the curse that's now on him, but they'd be foolish to do so. According to this fan theory, King Harold was originally a frog to begin with and not a human at all. Years ago, this frog really wanted to marry a princess, just like the Princess and the Frog, and then he meets the fairy godmother who makes a deal with him. If she turns him into a human, his future daughter has to marry her son. Hence Prince Charming is so obsessed with Fiona. And then when he gets hit with the magic at the end, he turns back into his original frog form because Fiona doesn't want to marry Prince Charming. Myth busted. At number 3 slot now is dragon. This theory is super far-fetched, but I thought it still deserved to be included. We were all thinking it, so I may as well just say it. How the hell did donkey and dragon breed? Like, how do they even have donkeys? I get that it's an animation and so it's not real, but seriously, how much can I suspend my disbelief? According to this theory, dragon was cursed to look like a dragon when she's actually a donkey. Yeah, I'll give you a few moments to let that sink in. And continuing on. If you look at pictures of donkey and dragon together, dragon's physiology is quite similar to donkey's. Their ears and heads are the same shape and in the same place, and even her nostrils are exactly like donkey's, and the rows of spikes along her head and neck could have been parallel to a donkey's mane. And this all also sort of explains how she was even mildly attracted to Donkey in the first place, instead of just jumping at the chance to eat him. Even when she was pregnant, we saw Donkey giving her space because she was moody, and female donkeys actually like to give birth alone away from the baby's father. So 1 + 1 equals donkey, I guess? And as for their kids, don't think I forgot that loose end. Since the curse makes her dragon appearance part of her genes, she passes it on to her kids. Now number 2 is the theory by young Stormlord about the Muffin Man, or rather what the Muffin Man could have been, and that is the ruler of Far Far Away. The Muffin Man is the baker from Drury Lane who creates live cakes and pastries in the form of gingerbread men, animals, things, you name it. He created Gingy, who is by far my favourite character, but that was probably because I just really wanted to eat him. But the theory is that the Muffin Man could have well and truly taken over Far Far Away if he wanted to, and quite easily as well. By creating an army of gingerbread men who are loyal to him, they could have induced terror in the kingdom. Even the first scene that mentions the Muffin Man has everyone shook. When Lord Farquaad realizes the Muffin Man is helping Shrek, the look on his face just says it all. He is screwed. And mind you, this is a dude who has a huge army and a bunch of creatures that'll fight for him, but that is the power of the Muffin Man. I mean, did you see the size of Mongo? For God's sake, that guy was an absolute unit. Finally, at our number 1 is Queen Lillian and Lord Farquaad. Now calm down, I'm not about to tell you a theory that somehow makes them married or reveals that these two are in fact siblings, or that they're Fiona's real parents. This theory, suggested by the theorizer, great name by the way, says that Queen Lillian was the reason Lord Farquaad even chose Fiona in the first place. Lord Farquaad is given the option of a few princesses through the magic mirror, like Cinderella, Snow White, etc., but he obviously ends up going with Fiona. If you've ever seen Snow White, then you know that the evil queen had the magic mirror and they both live in Far Far Away. We as the audience have no idea where the mirror comes from, but Lord Farquaad's knights just tell him that they found it somewhere in DULOC. Well, here's the plot twist, people. Queen Lillian actually plants Fiona's image in the mirror and sends it to DULOC, a place that's coincidentally full of knights, desperately hoping and praying that one of them will rescue her poor daughter from the tower. Starting us off with number 10 is the Dark Universe, and honestly on paper this seems like such a successful idea, so I don't know why they abandoned the project, because I know a lot of people would have been very into it. So the Dark Universe was meant to be a film franchise based on various monsters from the past. Now the plan was to integrate the horror films into a connected universe like Marvel's superheroes. They planned to bring back The Bride of Frankenstein and then create new films for Dracula, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, etc. Now how cool would a supervillain or like super monster universe be? I haven't watched any of the Marvel movies, but this I would watch. But after The Mummy tanked at the box office, the decision to bring back The Bride of Frankenstein right after was also cancelled. The studio also had no one spearheading the project, and they realized a huge ass overarching franchise is really hard to make, and rushing the films and then releasing them when they have weak storylines just wasn't the flex. Coming in at number 9, we have Shrek's name. Exactly, who even came up with with that name. Now many people have theorized that Shrek actually made his name up, and I'll tell you why. In the first movie, when Donkey asks him what his name is, Shrek hesitates before finally saying, Shrek, which have led many people to believe he made it up on the spot, not thinking it would actually stick. Then later on, when Fiona asks, well, can I at least know the name of my champion? Shrek again hesitates and then goes, Shrek. People believe that Shrek had never been asked his name before, since every time he'd encountered people before, they would usually just shriek. Shriek? Shrek? I see it. I definitely see it. And the word Shrek actually means fright in German, and based on what Shrek wears, it's very likely that Far Far Away could have been very well set in Germany. Hence, when he was asked his name, he sort of just said the first thing that came to his mind, which is what he's been used to hearing people call him. And kind of sad now that I look back at it. At number 8 now, we have Facebook. I know you're probably thinking, how the hell does Shrek have anything to do with Facebook? And honestly, I was thinking the exact same thing, but this is a legitimate theory offered up by BuzzFeed. If we go and look at the scene from Shrek, where we can see Lord Farquaad's castle, his flags are blue with a big white F in the middle. Ring any bells? Is this starting to fall into place? Now I wonder which social media platform has a blue logo with a big white F in the middle. I mean, I think Facebook might. Shrek came out in 2001, Facebook was launched in 2004. Now, I'm not saying Mark Zuckerberg was watching Shrek and thought, oh, this may be a great look for my app, but I'm also not saying that either. I mean, make of this what you will. Filling our number 7 slot is your one true love. Now if I were to conclude this theory, I would just have to say that it's basically saying that Fiona is fake as hell, which I find pretty funny if I'm honest. This theory is solely based on the plot of the second film, so here we go. We already saw in the first film that it was Shrek who was Fiona's one true kiss and love, and then they got married. Quick recap, done, great. Now in the next film, after Shrek and Donkey drink the happily ever after potion and wake up in their better looking forms, the fairy godmother realizes what's happened and sends Charming to the castle as Shrek instead. I'm sorry, how does Fiona not realize that Prince Charming isn't Shrek? Why does it take him bursting in at the last possible second for her to realize, oh damn, maybe this isn't my husband after all? How did she not even realize she wasn't interacting with her husband, her betrothed? It's beyond me. But either way, because of her stupidity and shallow love for Shrek and for her inability to know who her husband is, people have theorized that Fiona is fake and that Shrek is not her one true love, and that frankly he deserves better. And I agree. Now at number 6 is Wolverine. I know, far-fetched but possible. If we look at the character arc of Shrek, he starts off as a grumpy, isolated outsider misanthrope, and he's slowly worn down by people who want to help him and who genuinely care about him, and then he starts to care about his family and other people and is sort of an anti-hero or even hero. But either way, in many ways he's exactly like Wolverine. Logan is also an angry, sensitive loner monster guy who goes on to help and care for the people he loves and ends up redeeming himself. So just imagine all of Logan's adventures but for Shrek. People are theorizing if DreamWorks was to make another spin-off, it could be like Wolverine and deal with adult themes. Just imagine this. Shrek's entire family is dead. Donkey is off the rails crazy, Shrek has nothing to live for, and the swamp is dried up. He has one last chance at a fairy tale journey that'll give him peace, closure, and a happy ending. See, as I say it actually sounds like a very entertaining movie, and Shrek as an action star, I'd watch it. Coming at number 5 now is Rumpelstiltskin. Now Rumpel is honestly a pain in everyone's ass, but let's face it. Yet everyone keeps falling for his twisted contracts one after the other. First Queen Lillian and King Harold, and then later Shrek in the last movie. I mean, come on people, have you guys learned nothing from each other? The man is not to be trusted. But anyway, the theory is that Rumpelstiltskin will eventually take over Far Far Away, and here's why. In a nutshell, he's smarter than everyone. He was this close to erasing Lillian and Harold from existing, and Shrek was practically fading away just as Fiona kissed him, so he was also this close to being erased from existence. So really, if Fiona had just waited one more second, Rumpel would have been king then and there. But she didn't, thank God, and that little troll is not the king of Far Far Away. But he still could be, judging by the fact Artie is the new king and he's very easily manipulated. It's only about time before Rumpelstiltskin would have roped him into some evil contract as well. Evil little con man. At At number 4 is Far, Far Away. The land of Far, Far Away seems like it's being run pretty well. You know, people seem to be flourishing, businesses are going, people are happy, they're probably paying taxes. I mean, it's going well. However, this theory claims that after Artie becomes king, the land is destined to become ruined. Let's look at the third movie. When we meet Artie, he's the butt of everyone's joke and is bullied by basically everyone. Fact. Next, when he realizes all the responsibilities that come with being king, he literally ruins everything by trying to turn the ship around and then making it crash. He's impulsive, scared, and doesn't think. Fact. Next, he cons Merlin into sending them back to Far, Far Away, which is a smart thing to do, but he also manipulates probably the only person that's ever been nice to him, and that is the making of a bad leader. Next. The only part of his character that's king quality is a speech at the very end, which he's only good at because he himself is a loser and he's appealing to other losers. All in all, due to the above mentioned reasons, Artie would have ruined Far, Far Away during his rule. I feel like I just gave a law court hearing. Filling our number 3 slot is Queen Lillian, who is probably the most underrated character in all of the movies. I mean, seriously, King Harold is just plain dumb, so really Lillian is holding the whole family afloat. I mean, she's really carrying that team. But anyway, this theory centers around the third movie and theorizes that Queen Lillian is part fae of some kind, or at least part magical and not just human. That's because during the scene where all the women are locked up, Lillian headbutts not just one, but 2 solid brick walls to the point of them collapsing just so they can all escape. Now, I know that she says it's because of her fighting skills, but I've seen some of the most skilled fighters be able to break layers of bricks with their hand, but not 2 full-on walls with their head. Something about her explanation just doesn't add up. And if Fiona had the same fighting skills, why couldn't she have just headbutted her way out of the tower that she was locked in? Exactly. Now at number 2 is Arthur Pendragon. Now we're introduced to our beloved Artie in Shrek the Third when in the midst of Fiona and Shrek taking over for the now dying King Harold, Harold mentions to Shrek another heir for the throne, his nephew Arthur. However, throughout the whole film, we don't actually find out who Artie's father actually is. A Reddit thread started by John Call of Duty theorized his father was Sir Justin, and if you don't remember who that is, that's totally fine. Cast your mind back to the second movie where Shrek reads Fiona's diary, and then sees a poster of someone called Sir Justin, and it would make sense for the family to have pictures and posters of their other family members in the house, so the people on that thread believe that Justin is his father. On the other hand, other people believe Prince Charming is actually Artie's dad. Plot twist. They both basically have the same hair and are both royalty. Instead of being a son of King Harold's siblings, people believe one of Lillian's sisters had married Charming, and that Charming's real name is Arthur Pendragon, which is Arthur Pendragon's real dad in real life. Even if you see Charming cry at the start of the movie and then see Artie fake cry, they literally look exactly the same. It can't just be a coincidence. And as for Charming wanting to marry Fiona, it's not like incest was uncommon amongst royalty anyway. And finally, at number 1 is Puss in Boots, our resident Spanish heartthrob and part-time cutest cat I've ever seen in my life. It's weird that there's only been one theory about Puss considering he's such a titular character after the first movie, but hey, better late than never. The theory claims that when King Harold hired Puss to get rid of Shrek on that hunting trip, Puss agreed to it in the hopes that he himself would end up getting to marry Princess Fiona. Well, is there even one male character in this film that doesn't have a thing for her? Probably just Donkey? He thought after doing what the king wanted, he may have helped him capture Fiona's heart afterwards. But after not being able to defeat Shrek and realizing he actually likes these two amigos, he decides to abandon his womanizer plan. Wow, now I've heard it all. Imagine Fiona and Puss's kids. I can't even.